It's Monday, and you know what that means. Added time answering your questions that you kindly submitted for today's episode. Got a ton of questions submitted for the first time in a while, probably the most I've had in quite a while. I think I have to go back to the summer when we had so much transfer noise and speculation. Obviously, the chaotic nature of the last 7 days regarding Chelsea, Frank Lampard being sacked. I didn't do an added time episode last week because of that. I had to scrap it. But today, back with added time. And once again, if you're new to the channel, every Monday answering your questions that you can submit on Sunday through my community page, but also on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. But let's get into the questions. Firstly here from Chris Lon, who asks, what do you think should be our realistic ambitions for the rest of the season? Top four? If we don't make top four, will that be a failure? Objectively, yeah, top four has to be Chelsea's aim for the rest of the season. If you're going to make the decision, the pretty harsh decision to sack your manager halfway through the year, and it's a pretty drastic move, you have to see improvement, and given the points range, how low it is currently, how short it is between us and the top four, it's absolutely within Chelsea's reach. Form has been so erratic. The Premier League season has been so unpredictable. And if Chelsea don't drastically improve their position by the end of the year, I'm going to look at the hierarchy at Chelsea and go, why did you make that move? If Chelsea gets top four, it'll be seen, at least from this point, as a success, improvement. So yeah, Chelsea absolutely have to get top four and retain Champions League football in the Premier League by the end of the season. Christopher asks, with Gilmour playtime looking limited this season, which club do you think suits him for growth and development? So at the time of recording, Matt Law was reporting this morning that Billy Gilmour is not going out on loan, which I think is great news because I want to see him develop under Thomas Tuchel and play more under Chelsea. But for his own personal development, we'll have to wait and see. I think we'll have to judge in May whether it was better for him to stay or go. We'll have to see on that front. But if in a hypothetical situation of him leaving and going out on loan to get minutes, I think absolutely in the Premier League because I think he's that good at the moment. I'm looking for a team that plays possession football, and luckily in the Premier League, it has gotten better over recent years. More teams want to play with the ball rather than just sitting back and sort of being really reactive. There aren't many teams like that in the Premier League, but mainly I look at Brighton under Graham Potter. The style of play, I really enjoy watching Brighton play. I think they try and get the ball on the ground, try and play progressive football. And you want Billy in a team where he can be in the centre of midfield and get a lot of touches of the ball, really progress the ball from deep. And I feel that Brighton, under the tutelage of Graham Potter and just the way they've been growing in recent years under him, I think would be an impressive place to go, and I think it would be good for his development, and I think would guarantee him minutes pretty regularly. Paul asks, where does Rhys James' future in this team lie? So you're sort of asking about sort of whether he'd be back up to Aspi, back up to Cho. I got questions as well on this sort of front and this sort of basis with Kurt Zouma as well, because he hasn't started either of the first two games for Thomas Tuchel. The thing I'm going to say on a general note here is it's still too early to judge. Tuchel, this is tomorrow I think will be a week since he joined Chelsea Football Club, so 7 days. I mean, it's hard to tell. He's obviously being very pragmatic with bringing back players who've been out in the cold, like Marcos Alonso yesterday. It's tough for him, I think, and I think he has to very quickly ascertain who he trusts, who he doesn't, trying to get a sense of unity back at Cobham probably within this first team squad. I'm not too concerned, and if he is playing a back three system, a player like Kurt Zouma, a player like Rhys James, who you're asking mainly about, will get lots of time. Rhys off the bench yesterday. Rhys has been so impressive this season. I think the quality of Rhys, the quality of Kurt Zouma, I think they'll get opportunities because Chelsea are playing so much football in the coming weeks. We've got Tottenham on Thursday, then I believe on Sunday it's away to Sheffield United, then the cup game against Barnsley where there's going to be a rotation, Newcastle, the Champions League games as well. You don't know about injury, suspension. There's going to be time for players to impress Thomas Tuchel. So I'm not too concerned at the moment. In relation to the system, I think Rhys could fill in at right centre-back, especially against teams who maybe sit a little bit deeper. I think Rhys has got the quality and mobility, and also I think versatility to potentially play in that role too. He's got the physicality, absolutely. So Rhys James, I'm not too concerned about, and I think moving forward, he'll either play one of those roles if Thomas Tuchel sticks with that back three system. Matthew asks, who is one Chelsea player currently on loan who you think will be part of the first team squad next season? There are many, and with Thomas Tuchel arriving, it changes the dynamic, I think, for a lot of players. It throws everything up in the air, I think, for good or bad reasons maybe, and everyone is like a clean slate, isn't it? So there are opportunities. So say like for Kyle Tomori, who had an impressive weekend for AC Milan, you felt, will he ever return to Chelsea? Now with Tuchel as coach, there is that possibility of the door being opened and he could return to Chelsea in the summer. I look at Mark Gurhey, who is having such a good season on loan at Swansea. He's really impressing week to week to week, and they're right in there for promotion. So if they were to be promoted, I wouldn't be too fast with him staying potentially at Swansea, but he's doing so well for them, the best defensive team in the Championship, and he's a big part of that. Conor Gallagher, you look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I'm a massive fan of Ruben, and I think it's amazing to see Ruben getting back to those levels again, and for me, he can be an inspirational figure for Chelsea. So I'm intrigued to see where his future lies. Ross Barkley is doing so well at the moment for Aston Villa. There are many players out there, and I've probably missed some. Ethan Ampadu too. It's so hard to tell. I'm going to say Mark Guehi, because all the noises I continue to hear with Guehi is how impressed the club are by him. I think his rate of development is so quick, and with sort of Tuchel's reliance on youth, and I think he's going to rely on youth a lot in his team, I wouldn't be too stunned if in pre-season he's one player that really impresses him and then stays for the season rather than going out on loan again. Chill Alexander asks, do you like Mount having the free role, or do you prefer him a bit deeper? It's interesting with Mount because I think he can have an impact either way. He was so brilliant yesterday, and he's been Chelsea's best player, I think, so far this season. I think it's between him and Thiago Silva for levels of consistency, and I think that's even better on Mason Mount, that he's keeping up with a player of that pedigree and sort of professionalism. I think it shows you about Mason. There is that sort of that versatility to his game, as we've seen. I mean, yesterday he started as sort of an inverted winger, sort of a roaming number 10, and I think we saw throughout the game against Burnley him switch positions, sort of being that wide player. He does have that natural sort of mobility and pace to go out wide and take defenders on. But in the second half, I liked when he was a little bit deeper. To me, it looked more like a 3-5-2 rather than a 3-4-3. And I think you saw the influence there, him on the turn in the centre of the park, where he got so much space to then was able to connect play from left to right to especially Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think he has that ability to switch play too. So then you naturally think about as a number 8, where he's been playing a lot this season, a little bit deeper. So I'd lean towards more deeper, because I think he's got the energy in midfield, and you want his energy utilised, but you can have it higher up the pitch too. And I think that Tuchel shows his tactical versatility and sort of flexibility, I think, to use Mount in different ways. So we'll have to see from a longer period of time where Mount eventually finds himself. But I think in either role, I think he can do wonders for Chelsea. Hasib asks, hey Daniel, what do you think about Hudson-Odoi's recent performance and the new playing style under Thomas Tuchel? By the way, great videos. Thank you, mate. With Callum, it's been brilliant to see him flourishing recently. And to be honest, even under Frank at the late stages there, he was one of Chelsea's best performers. And for me, there's been so much talk about Callum in terms of misusing him. On reflection, you know, he should have been playing more. I actually think the turn of this year has been where, for me, it's been unequivocal that, you know, Callum Hudson-Odoi should be starting games for Chelsea Football Club now. He's been one of our best players, influential players too, and it seems like he's got the problems of the injury and fitness problems before behind him now. He looks to be full of freedom, full of confidence, in full flow on that pitch, and is now having an influence for Chelsea. So it's wonderful to see, and it's wonderful to see too Tuchel taking him into that right wing back spot. And he's not really playing as a wing back. I mean, he's sort of playing just as a conventional winger. He's pressing up the pitch much higher, and you saw yesterday how Jorginho and Kovacic really help him with that, have that balance too. I think having a defender like Dave behind him too, I think helps even more of that freedom. Coming up against Spurs, a team that you'd think, with the threat of Son potentially on the break and Gareth Bale too, that there'll be a little bit more to think about. Whether Tuchel continues to play Hudson-Odoi as a right wing back, we'll have to see. He's been brilliant. And I think the playing style, once again, it's only 2 games in, but I like the idea of dominating possession. That conversation I had with Marius Fisher really gave some insight into the way Thomas Tuchel wants to go about things in terms of the counter press, in terms of the gegenpress, but getting the ball back and dominating it. That's what Chelsea have had. And I think against Spurs, we'll dominate the ball once again. It's just about Chelsea's ability to take chances, and also the threat of, say, Son, who's such a devastating player in transition for Spurs. So it's going to be interesting, and I think Hudson-Odoi absolutely is going to be a key player for Chelsea. And it's about patience. You know, so many people last year writing Callum Hudson-Odoi off, such a young guy, so much talent, and now he's flourishing in the Chelsea first team. Lloyd Enyako asks, do you think we should make the 3-4-3/3-4-2-1 our primary formation under Tuchel? Also love the channel. Thank you, mate, once again. I think Tuchel, if you listen to his comments post-match yesterday, he said, if I find a formation and a system and sort of a lineup that works for 20 matches and we win 20 matches in a row, then I'll stick to that. But it's unlikely to do that. And absolutely, I think that's what you've got in Tuchel. He's very flexible. I could see us moving to a back 4. I think the back 3 will probably stay now. We've had, 2 clean sheets as well. So I think he'll probably stick to that for Spurs, for sort of that protection in front of the back 4. And especially if you've got players like Marcus Alonso and Callum Hudson-Odoi, players that like to get up the pitch, I think you need that protection too, and be a little bit more conservative. But he may switch to a 4-3-3 as well. So it's about sort of the personnel. I think that will shift given who he's playing on a certain day, especially the opposition we're playing against. I'm intrigued to see what he does when we play a team that presses us much higher. We've got Southampton in a few weeks, so I think that will show you where sort of Tuchel is going with that sort of opponent. The first few opponents he's playing against are much more reactive, trying to be counter-attacking, trying to sit deep. So I think we're seeing that formation currently work under him, but will that change in a few weeks' time? It's very hard to tell. We think back to the Conte days, how successful the 3-4-3 was, and you think that a formation like this, as we've seen already, can integrate maybe more players in interesting positions to get the best in attack. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm excited so far. I think it's working. And finally, Adil asks, will there be a resurgence in the Chelsea career of Marcos Alonso after the Roberto Carlos-esque goal? That's not so much, you could compare it to Roberto Carlos. This is what Marcos Alonso has been doing for his Chelsea career. He's a wonderful finisher if he gets into the right place. We know his quality as a left wing back. I don't think that's ever been in question. You saw that last season in certain big performances he played in for Lampard as well, and for Conte he was incredible in that 16-17 title winning year. That's not in question. I think, especially in a back four, I don't trust him, and as even we've seen his professionalism this season be questioned. I think, as I said at the start of the video, Tuchel is being pragmatic at the moment. I think he's trying to unite everyone again. Players that were sort of maybe causing problems behind the scenes or maybe felt disconnected to the squad are being reintegrated now, and he wants to use all the players at his disposal. I still think it's very likely that Marcos Alonso trails off in form, and I think that Ben Chilwell, it's on Ben now to really step up his game and get back into that starting lineup too. I think that with Marcos Alonso's age, I wouldn't be too stunned if he plays a bit more, it rises his value, and in the summer maybe he moves on from Chelsea, because I think that will naturally happen. But just for the time being, if it works, if it gets Chelsea results, if Marcos Alonso steps up with another derby goal against Spurs on Thursday and wins us the game, I'm not complaining. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.